Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. Today's video is a tentative to-be-read pile for NonFiction November. If you caught my last video, which was the wrap-up for the Autumn Readathon, I mentioned that this would be coming because the day that I am filming this, which is Halloween, NonFiction November starts tomorrow. So I gotta kind of get this video out so you can see what I might be picking up throughout the month. There have been a number of NonFiction November TBRs uploaded in the last week or so, so it's very possible you've already seen a bunch, but just in case this is the first one that you've stumbled across, NonFiction November is an event that is hosted by Gemma from NonFic Books and Olive from A Book Olive. Gemma and Olive did come up with 4 prompts if you're somebody that likes a little structure with your reading that you can use to help pick out some books to read during November. However, you don't have to follow those prompts. The point of NonFiction November is to read more nonfiction books than you usually would. So if you never read them, reading one counts as participating. For myself, I love reading nonfiction books, so I am going to read basically nonfiction for the entire month. I have a lot of nonfiction books to choose from. There's a lot of variety on my shelf, so I don't think I'll be bored. The 4 prompts are home, substance, love, and scholarship, and they are purposely kind of vague, so you can pick books and sort of make them work as much as you want. I have picked 2 books for each of those prompts, as well as an additional 4 books that I will just have sitting in my TBR pile because they're books that I might be interested in reading but didn't quite fit with what I had going in terms of the prompts. Alright, I think I've given you everything you need to know, so let me get to my TBR options. I'll start by talking about the 8 books that I have for the 4 prompts we've been given. The first book that I want to pick up is Evicted by Matthew Desmond, Poverty and Profit in the American City. This is about a number of families living in Milwaukee, and it talks about poverty and economic struggles that people face in just trying to keep a roof over their heads. I actually read a snippet of this book online before it came out a while ago, and I really liked it, so that prompted me to pick up this book. However, I haven't had the chance to read it yet, so I would say this is definitely on my list of like top books that I want to get to this month. The other book I have for home is We Are as Gods, Back to the Land in the 1970s on the Quest for a New America by Kate DeLawes. This is about the Back to the Land movement that took place in the 1970s, specifically focusing on a community in the Northeast Kingdom in Vermont, and since I am from Vermont originally, I am counting this as home because Vermont is home for me. The author's parents were part of this movement, so it sounds like she interviewed them and their friends and looked at pictures to sort of put together a history of this movement and specifically how it turned out in the Northeast Kingdom in Vermont. The next prompt is Substance, and the first book that I decided to pick up for that prompt is The Disappearing Spoon and Other True Tales of Madness, Love, and the History of the World from the Periodic Table of Elements. So, pretty self-explanatory subtitle with that book. When I saw Substance, it kind of made me think of substances and science, so I figured this would be a really good book to put in that prompt, and I know I will be learning a lot about the periodic table from this. The other book that I chose is First Women, The Grace and Power of America's Modern First Ladies by Kate Anderson Brower. This book has made a few appearances on this channel. I read the prologue as part of the Try a Chapter tag, and I liked it, so I figured I could probably read it for NonFiction November because I didn't quite feel like picking it up at that moment. And the reason I chose this for Substance is that when I think of First Ladies, I think of women of substance, so that's my connection. For the third prompt of Love, the first book that I chose is A Historical Tour of Walt Disney World by Andrew Kist. I love Walt Disney World, so that's the connection with this one. This is about the different rides at Walt Disney World, and not just about the rides, but about the historical and cultural significance of them. I have a feeling this one's going to be another one of my must-reads for this month. I've been looking forward to picking it up for a while, and I've kind of been saving it for NonFiction November. The other book that I have for Love is Hope, Adventures of a Diamond by Marian Fowler. I'm pretty sure I had this on my TBR for NonFiction November last year. I've had this book for a long time, and I just never found the right time where I really want to read it, but I'm gonna include it on this TBR anyway, even if I don't get to it. Hope is about the Hope Diamond, which is the biggest blue diamond to ever be found, and it has quite a history, so that's why there's an entire book written about a gemstone. The final prompt is scholarship, so I took this as learning about something that I maybe know a bit about or know nothing about. The first book that I want to pick up for this prompt is On Immunity and Inoculation by Eula Biss. This focuses mostly, from what I can see, on vaccines and the controversy around that, coming from the perspective of a new mom who wanted to learn more about them and why people don't like them so much, and also the history of immunity and what that word means culturally. So I feel like this is going to be quite a ride with this one, but I feel like I'm going to learn a lot of really interesting things. The final book that I have for the prompts is The Morning They Came for Us, Dispatches from Syria by Janine DiGiovanni. This is a library book that I specifically got from the library for NonFiction November. I've been wanting to read this for a really long time, and my library finally had a copy of it, and it was finally available, so I grabbed it. This is all about the war in Syria. Janine DiGiovanni is a very respected war correspondent. She has been to war zones all over the world, and she wanted to go to Syria to see it for herself and provide her own perspective, as well as talk to people from many different backgrounds and see how they are dealing with everything that is happening. I have heard really great things about this book, and it is a library book, so it'll definitely be one of my first reads this month. And as mentioned at the beginning, I have a smaller stack of books, just 4 extras that I feel like I might want to read this month, and it gives me some options. And who doesn't love options? The first book that I know I will be picking up at some point is The Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit by Michael Finkel. This is another library book, so it kind of is important to read this one. It's about a man who in 1986 left everything that he knew in Massachusetts and drove up to Maine and just disappeared into the woods. And he didn't talk to another person for almost 30 years. He got caught stealing things from people's houses in order to survive, and then that's how this whole story came to be. I actually remember reading the news article when they found the guy who was stealing things, because of course the whole community was trying to figure out what's going on, and it was this hermit in the woods. The author talks to this gentleman named Christopher Knight and gets his perspective on the world. Why did he do it? How did he survive out there? Maine has some really cold, harsh winters. What sort of ingenious ideas did he come up with in order to stay alive and keep food fresh and all that stuff? So I feel like it'll be a really interesting read. It's also really short, so I feel like I'll just fly through it. Third to last book is This Is Really Happening, True Stories by Erin Chack. This is a memoir. She has a number of essays just writing about, seems to be like her teenage years into early adulthood. This definitely feels like a memoir that is geared towards young adults. I figured this would be a really breezy read if I've just read one of the heavier books and I want something quick. I can pick this one up. Once again, really short. I mean, I feel like I could read this in an afternoon if I wanted to, but it might be a good way to break up some of the heavier reads that I have. Second to last, I have Behind the Beautiful Forevers, Life, Death, and Hope in a Mumbai Undercity by Catherine Bu. This follows a number of families that live in a slum near the Mumbai airport, and I have heard really good things about this book, never mind the fact that it won the National Book Award and it was one of the New York Times best reviewed books in 2012, so it's got a lot going for it already. This is one that I feel like I should read because I've had it on my shelf for a while, and it's also technically my mom's book, so I feel like I should read that and get it back to her so she can read it, because she still hasn't read it yet. And then my last book that I will maybe possibly get to during NonFiction November is Atlantic, Great Sea Battles, Heroic Discoveries, Titanic Storms, and a Vast Ocean of a Million Stories by Simon Winchester. This is a book that I had set aside for the autumn readathon. I didn't get to it. I kind of want to read this, but there's so many other good books that I want to read instead. So if I feel like I want to get a sweeping history by somebody who's known for writing wonderful books about very particular topics, I'll pick this one up, but I mean, there's so many. I feel like these are the top 4 books that I want to get to, so hopefully I'll be able to tackle all these during this month, and then anything else that I get to is basically just luck at this point. If you have read any of these books that I mentioned today, please let me know what you thought of them down below. As always, all of our links are in the doobly-doo. Please check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.